What is up, everybody? It's Ed Gow Jr. here from Dad Central, and we have another episode of the Dad Central show. We don't have Drew today, but I am filling in, and I hope I do Drew proud. So just want to say before we go any further, the Dad Central show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, and because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. And one of the great things about doing these epic conversations, I like to say, is meeting new friends. And we're going to introduce you, many of you, to another new friend today. And when I had a pre-show conversation with our new friend, it was powerful, it was meaningful, and was heart-centered. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you through the Dad Central show today a gentleman named Ray Arata. He's a father. He's the founder of the Better Man Conference and is the author of 2 Books for Men. So I don't want to hold him back. I'll just bring him up right now. So Ray, how are we doing today?
No, I'm doing pretty well today. It's clear here in Fairfax, which is in Northern California, and I'm looking out to a beautiful sky.
Absolutely. Hey, what more do you want? Well, I don't know if you want better company than me. I don't know if there's better company. It probably is better company than me. But you know what? I'm very happy that you have taken the time from your positive, productive schedule for serving yourself, serving men, and serving people around the world. And before we get right into our conversation about fatherhood, can you give us a little background of what the Better Man Conference is all about?
Yeah, so the Better Man Conference is a conference I founded in 2016 when I realized there wasn't a place for men to come and learn how to be better men. Now, what drove this was, and we'll get into this later, was my thousands of hours of men's work around working with men on how to live and lead from the heart in their personal lives. And so when I had attended a bunch of women's leadership conferences and saw how they came together so well, I'm like, who's doing this for men? Answer, nobody. And so I created the conference and this was before Time's Up or Me Too, COVID, or the Black Lives Matter movement. But nonetheless, there was a lot of intention in companies to advance women. And they were just starting to look at people of color and the other marginalized groups. And so I came up with this idea to bring some of my heart-centered work into the allyship and leadership conversation. So here we are 6 years later, and this year we'll be looking at power, patriarchy, and privilege.
Nice. Fantastic. Well, thank you for that backdrop. And for people, we will begin giving some information about the conference before the end of this conversation. We're going to talk today about fatherhood. And you are a father, but I'd like to start off our conversation with this conversation piece. What important lesson did you learn from your childhood experience that you also carry into your fatherhood today?
Well, I look to my father, who's still alive, Ray Jr. And there were a number of lessons along the way. I don't think of them as lessons per se, but my recollection of when I saw my father, he was committed to my mother. He was a provider. He was kind and generous with his time. He donated a lot of his time. He ended up being a Superior Court judge, and he expected a fair amount from me, and he wouldn't tolerate. I'm not going to swear, but he wouldn't tolerate any BS. And at the same time, he was a very kind man. So, my father taught me to think about other people besides myself.
And already a conversation piece I can relate with you. My dad expected a lot from me. And my dad, he's retired now, but he was a public school teacher in the same public school, basically in the same classroom for 38 years.
And I realize you're asking me this question, what important lessons did you learn from childhood? I'm still learning lessons from him.
What sort of lessons are you still learning from him at this part of your journey?
So, I'm a vulnerable guy, so I'll just, share it. I've been going through some challenging times on how to parent my 28-year-old son, who's currently living with me, who went through some depression. And my father currently, and for a while now, has allowed my brother, who's 20 months younger than me, to live with him. And some addiction issues, some ADHD issues, etc., gone untreated. I used to accuse my father of enabling my brother. And so I always said, I don't want to be like my dad. And whenever we say, I don't want to be like my father, we must say, how am I like him? Because when we say we don't want to be like him, we put it off into the shadows.
Yeah.
And so I fast forward to current day, son living with me.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, I get it now. I must do whatever I can, no matter what anybody else thinks, to support my son and to move him along.
That's
so
powerful.
Yeah, tell me about it. So that's that lesson. I'm wrapped all in that one right now. And the lesson is, until you're in those shoes, dice nulla, which means say nothing in Italian. So right now, guess what I'm saying to my brother, my son's brother and his sister and other people? Unless I'm even saying it to my son, because him and I kind of get into some tassel, and I say, until you're a father, you won't know.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
How, and if I'm asking too much, please tell me whole, but how is it? Because I doubt you have managed at this part of your journey, you are fathering your son that lives with you.
Right.
How have you adjusted as a dad and as a man?
So as a father, I get accused of by my son and my wife of trying to coach them, and it's part of my nature. And they want a father and they want a husband. So as a father, that's, for me, it's about how can I love my son in the ways that he needs me to. Sometimes it's hard love, sometimes it's caring and holding love, and everything in between. And there's no playbook. There's no playbook for that. So every day I have to be willing to try something different, and I do. And that means I have to listen to him. Not everything, but I have to listen to him. And then as a man, one of my mentors said, when your son starts to become a man and stand up to you, it's going to be messy at first. It's like he's going to be yielding some newfound power. You might get nicked on the chin. and there's a part of you that's going to be proud of that. And there's a part of you that has to not take it on. And remember so what it made me remember was, I remember that my dad used to talk to me like this, and I allowed it. And then one day, when he went off in a tirade, I looked at him and I said, "Are you done?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Okay, now it's my turn." Wow. And the energetic shift, because I claimed it. So that's the man piece. So right now, my father and he respects me and I respect him as men. That title of father, that bloodline of father, that doesn't change. And with that comes respect, because he's my father. And that's what my son's learning right now.
Right.
He doesn't have the respect piece yet because he's in some of the power, and he'll get that in time.
Beautiful storytelling going on right here, and it's really impactful. Are there other things that you've carried from your growing up with your father that you still carry with you today, other than the things you've shared? Is there anything else?
Um, my father's he's a thinker. And if you think about it, if I think about it, and I've thought about it, um, emotional literacy and men's work didn't exist when he was growing up and becoming a father. He didn't really have a playbook other than what he saw his father do, and his father was kind of not close to him. And so, and then he married my mother, who was a Southern Italian, very intuitive woman. And so there was head, there was gut, and then this kid, me, comes along with heart, a byproduct of the two of them. And so it's been fascinating how that's brought all of us together and how I see him, because I know that heart's in there and it comes out, over a cigar or over a glass of wine or a Negroni or something like that. But it's there. And yeah, so that the other thing, you asked me to describe the Better Man Conference earlier. It didn't occur to me, but right in front of me, growing up, I had my mother, who founded the Women's Auxiliary for the Janet Pomeroy Center. It's for people with disabilities, including mental and emotional. And my dad was on the board. And my dad was a high-flying attorney, and he got in a car accident and decided to be a judge to serve the people. So my dad was the consummate civil servant, and my mom, had a heart for donating her time. And so when I started the Better Man Conference and getting involved in gender and racial justice, I'm like, duh, I had the model. So I guess that's the other stuff that I've carried forward, that I'm in to this moment, to today.
Excellent. Let's talk about your journey in becoming a dad. What were some of the hopes, fears, or challenges that came up in the process, and how did you manage them when they did, and how are you still managing them when they come up?
So my journey to becoming a father was an oops.
You're the first conversation we've had where someone described as an oops. That's a mic drop. That's a quotable. That's an oops. It's an oops.
But it was a brilliant oops, because I oopsed 2 more times. In that, the first time, the mother and my former wife, I got her pregnant, and I remember this was on Easter Sunday when she told me. I think it was in 1992, and I looked at her and I said, I want to do the right thing. Don't worry. And she said to me, let's not make a bad thing out of a good thing. Well, I didn't really pay any attention to that. And so I asked her to marry me, because, I'd been a bartender in San Francisco for many years and had lots of fun. And then I was like, this isn't for me. I want to be in a relationship with one woman. And the way I describe it is, my 3 kids up in heaven were like saying, you two need to come together so we can come into existence. And so when she told me she was pregnant, I was off to the races. And the only model I had was what I saw growing up. So I was raised Roman Catholic, and so I was responsible. And that jump-started me into life. Now, when stressful situations induce something like that, you're going to make mistakes. Now, I'm a good, kind man, and at that time I was without emotional literacy, and so I always wanted to be the pleaser and do the right thing. And after 7 years, when my kids were 7, 5, and 3, and we had moved back into the brand new home we built, my wife didn't want to be married to me anymore. And that was the start of my wake up call. But what's really important in the context of being a father is, she used to say to me, you're here but you're not. You're on the phone. You're not present. And so once when I went through the divorce, I realized that, I was a 50% father 100% of the time. And now as I'm
Ray,
feeling,
can you repeat that? Because I think a number of
I know it's another
fathers,
mic drop. Yeah. So
yeah, your fathers and men need to, not just fathers, but men need to hear that. So
yeah. So
can you
and
repeat that?
there's two parts of it.
Yeah.
I realized I was a 50% father 100% of the time, and I needed to be 100% father 50% of the time, because the divorce was dictating that I would only have my kids 50% of the time. And I fought for that. So painful lesson, a lot of tears that I wasn't going to see my kids every day. And I had to process that. So I imagine a lot of your listeners have gone through or are going through divorce. One of the best things they could do is to look at the divorce as a wake-up call. And instead of blaming her, I'm being general here, ask yourself, did this happen on my watch? Yep. Next question, what did you have to do with it? Don't blame her. What did you have to do with this? And then third, who or what do you really care about such that you'll make a commitment to do something different? That's all about accountability. I never knew what that was. And so that changed everything for me being a father. Because then, instead of walking through life asleep in my own little pity party, blaming everybody else, instead of unconsciously subscribing to those unwritten rules of what it means to be a man, I chose to wake up. I chose to do my men's work. I chose to do a men's weekend. I chose to join men group. I chose to not be stoic. I chose to be vulnerable. And I've gotten rewards upon rewards upon rewards upon rewards. That is what needs to change on our planet. More men need to do men's work, period.
Love, and I'm a big supporter of men's work. That moment that you said, you know what, it's time to make a turn.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not? You may or may not, but do you remember either some moments or a moment where you said, Ray, we got to make a turn?
Yeah, I do. I remember.
Go ahead, if you could.
So
share
everything I just
please.
said was in the narrow context of fatherhood, and it was out of the pain that I wasn't going to see my kids, and that phraseology of 50% father 100% of the time. I started to get that later, but the moment was when I was at work in the financial services industry, when my manager called me out on some of my behavior. And the way he did it sounded similar to how my then wife spoke to me. And I said, thank you for saying that to me. I've got to do something. I've heard this at home. Now I've heard it at work, because we're the same person. We all might think that I can be different at work, but I'm different at home. No, if you do it there, you do it here, and vice versa, however you are. And I walked into my manager's office and I said, thanks for giving me that feedback. I need to do something. And that's when he handed me the brochure for the Mankind Project. And I'm like, what the bleep is this thing? And he said, it's I can't tell you what goes on, wink, wink, but it changed my life. Here, call my wife. So under the auspices of fixing my marriage, because I was the first in the family who never had any divorce, I went to this weekend, and it was an initiation into healthy manhood. And I realized there, and subsequent to being there, that this was a journey to healthy manhood and fatherhood. And I had to confront how the pained little boy in me was driving the adult bus. So whilst your podcast is about fatherhood, there's an inner fathering that all of us guys must do to ourselves. That's a big piece of what it means to be a man. It's about it's the stuff that us guys don't do. It's about self-love. It's about asking for help. It's about not trying to do it all. It's about doing your work. Then then we can be the father we want to be. Because if we don't do that, what a lot of guys will do is they say to themselves, my father wasn't this way for me. I'm going to be this way for me. And the pendulum swings in the other direction. And you still wound your kids. So it's much better to turn the spotlight on yourself to be a better, more head and heart centered man.
That's a hard thing for a lot of fathers.
Yes.
It's a hard thing for a lot of men because they probably never, for a lot of times, they haven't experienced that or ever been in a situation or environment like that.
That's true. And you said hard, you didn't say impossible. And so pain is usually the only motivator. So some of your listeners might be saying, that's cool, it's fine, it's good. And that might be. And they're not in any pain. But the ones that are in pain, they know what I'm talking about. And they're probably ready to do something different because being a father is one of the most important things to them. But I would encourage even those that don't feel the pain. Here's the metaphor. Your house is your life. And for some guys, if the house is on fire, what I'm talking about, it's easier to grok what I'm saying. But what if I asked you, is there any smoke in your house? Are there any frayed wires in your house? And be real honest, because frayed wires get a spark. Smoke is an indicator of fire. So rather than find out at the end that there's issues, get curious. Ask your kids or ask the woman or partner in your life, is there anything you've been trying to tell me that I've been unable to listen to? I could go on and on because I've heard it all. I've heard it all, Ed.
I know you have. Let me ask, how has the fatherhood journey been different with the second marriage compared to the first?
Yeah. So the fatherhood journey has been different because of the woman in my life, my wife, Anna, who has been extremely supportive. And this whole time I have been in a second marriage, I've been involved in men's work, which means for 22 years, I've been going to men's group. I left to do a men's weekend 57 times. I went into maximum security prisons, and every time I came back, she was there. And my two sons have done their men's weekend. They did a boys to men weekend, and my daughter's doing her personal work. So we are a conscious household. It's the secret sauce.
Wow, that's good. That's really good. You have a lot of stuff going on. Just put it mildly. Family, conference, etc. How do you balance fatherhood life and work life? And I actually also include personal life.
So, very consciously. So, with the right amount of self-love, I know that I have to include myself, and I have friends that remind me of that sometimes. The kids are out of the house with the exception of my son who's living here right now. And at this stage in the game with older kids, bigger issues, different skill set required to be a father. For me, family, being an Italian American, family is everything. So I bring the kids over here for dinner and we cook together, and I talk to them all pretty regularly. And my work life is purpose driven. So right now, if I had a pie chart, I'd say the majority of my time is around work, and the way I take care of me is I'm an avid cyclist. So I ride my bike 12 to 14 hours a week. I have to take care of myself. A lot of guys forget that. That's where my community is. And I don't work on the weekends. And at the same time, I'm purpose driven. So I'm always kind of in tune with all this stuff. So it's kind of hard to turn it off.
I hear you. I can fully relate and understand. Um, Being the founder of the Better Man Conference, how in any way has that impacted your fatherhood journey?
It's helped me. Here's the answer I want to give you. Me being a father has impacted my Better Man experience. And I'll give you an
Yeah,
example.
yeah. I want you to go do. I think that's beautiful. If you can dive deeper in that, that's wonderful.
So at my book signing at the Book Passage in Corte Madera on Saturday, the two youngest people in the audience were my son and daughter. And their experience of what's going on the planet right now, what's going on in companies right now, what's important to them was extremely valuable to hear. And valuable for people my age to hear. Because why? Because in companies, most of the people who have decision-making capacity, managers, directors, VPs, CEOs, et cetera, they're my age or 10 years younger. And they need to understand what's important for these younger people because these companies want to stay competitive. They want to be successful and they need to keep their people and attract people. And if they don't have a culture that's inclusive of the young people as well, they're in trouble. So one of the questions you asked earlier, I don't exactly remember what the question was, but there's something I say to a lot of parents. And I say, your children are your teachers. And what I mean by that is your children are going to unearth your unfinished business. They're going to put you in touch with the stuff you haven't processed yet. Because, like with my son as an example, I remember I'm like looking at him, listening to him. Like this was a couple months ago. And I'm like, I remember being like that. And then I flipped. I'm like, oh, I remember how my dad would respond when I was like that. Oh, that's what I'm doing right now. Oh, I remember what I needed to hear and didn't hear. Oh, that's what I need to say. I can do that again if you want, but it was
Absolutely.
profound. Seeing myself in my son had me see my father in me react to him, which made me realize, oh, that's what I heard. And then I dropped deeper saying, oh, what didn't I hear that I needed to hear? And then I said that.
That's beautiful. That's really wonderful.
This is upper division stuff, but this is the stuff I think about.
No, it's absolutely wonderful. And I love your intentionality about fatherhood and manhood. It's shared with real life experience, real life honesty, and real life vulnerability. So I bless you for that.
Thank you.
I bless you for that big time. Let me ask you something. What's the most important skill you developed that is essential for your ability to be a dad? And why is it so important to you?
What is the most important skill you've developed? There's more than one, but
so take your time. If you want to give a few, please do. Remember, we're doing a conversation. It's like cardboard box here.
Yeah. Self-reflection, self-forgiveness, and coming from the heart.
Can you break down?
Yeah.
Please.
So self-reflection requires that I put the attention on myself. Why am I saying, doing? Why am I not saying or doing something? What do I have to do with this? In the event that I made a human mistake, I must forgive myself. because, we're human. As fathers, we make mistakes. And then last but not least is I know that if I come from my heart, I'm coming from the right place. So that's empathy, that's vulnerability, that's connecting to my emotions. So it's that stuff. It's healthy masculinity.
Were those things that you learned on your own, or were those things that you saw and developed into your fatherhood journey?
I saw, intuited, and developed those through a series of ahas. When I put myself on the path of becoming a heart-centered man, doing my men's work, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of personal work, a lot of connecting the dots, a lot of accountability. Carl Jung refers to shadow, the shadow beliefs, those parts of us that we hide, repress, and deny. And with shadow beliefs comes shadow behavior. So when I got interested in my shadows, like basically my beliefs that I had never confronted before, like for me, my core deep shadow belief, my deep wounding was I'm not lovable. Painful to confront, and it's BS because I am lovable. I knew that came from not getting the love and nurturing I needed from my mother. My mom was a very strong, not very feminine woman, and I needed that and didn't get it. So I don't blame her. But the wound, kids, when they get wounded, they protect themselves. So they develop other behaviors so they don't have to feel that pain anymore. For me, I was a pleaser, a seducer, etc. And so that may have worked, it kept me safe when I was young. But when you're an adult, the little boy running the show doesn't work. So getting a glimpse into that and what was driving my behavior at an unconscious level and shining light on it is the essence of work. A lot of people won't bother. They'll take drugs. Therapy's okay in the beginning just to kind of calm you, but ultimately doing your work there's no, and right now we're seeing an explosion of men's groups. So
Yep.
the time's here.
Absolutely.
Time's now.
In your work with dads and men, what have you found to be the area that they need the most support?
To not do this alone, that it's okay to acknowledge your struggles and pain. It's not about stuffing it, and that there's a way forward, and that there are some playbooks out there. That's why I wrote my first book, Wake Up, Man Up, Step Up, Transforming Your Wake Up Call to Emotional Health and Happiness. Men need to be with men. Men need to heal. That's the area that most men need support in, is their healing.
Do you want to go deeper on that?
Yeah. So I have yet to meet a man who hasn't experienced some form of emotional trauma, whether it was absentee father, alcoholic father, absentee mother, overbearing mother, alcoholic mother, death of a parent, sexual abuse from a man or a woman. The list could go on. Later in life, death, not knowing how to grieve, isolation, being alone, all of those things. Sexual orientation, someone who has to cover.
And that takes so much energy, just covering.
Yeah, all of that stuff. We've all been wounded. And none of us have been taught how to heal. So we stuff it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Period.
beautiful.
Period.
Yep. Point blank.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Good stuff. What's been the greatest challenge you've had as a dad?
I'm in it right now. And it's been how to support. I mean, my daughter went through an eating disorder, so that was pretty significant. And right now, my son, as he is coming out of his depression and supporting him, I've been the lone supporter in a number of instances, alone, and for a period of time. So that's been very challenging. I hold out a lot of hope, and things are going to be fine, but it doesn't take away how difficult it's been. So that, and he said something to me the other day. He said, "We don't talk." And some of the things he was saying to me, I've heard before. And he's a very sensitive man, just like my wife. And so I went away from that going, I've heard this before. It's kind of like when I had my wake up call when my manager said that. So I'm paying attention right now that he's different and he's fine. And I need to make some changes. Part of being a dad is coming to terms with everything you know sometimes won't work.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do then?
Yeah.
Go find another way. Never. I'm going to quote Winston Churchill in the most famous college commencement speech. He walked onto the stage and he said, never, 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 never give up. 9-word commencement, and he walked off the stage. And so I share that with all of your fathers, no matter what the custody battles are, no matter what's going on. Winston Churchill.
Yeah. Short little story. I had a situation that I dealt with my dad when I was growing up, and I'm sure some other fathers can relate this. It was bubbling inside of me. And I think we talked about it when we had our pre-conversation, and I had to approach him on it. And I basically said, Dad, I'll always love you, etc. But this thing that you did hurt me. And he said, that's all the way I knew. And simple explanation elevated our relationship. I could have given up on my relationship because of that thing or things, but that simple thing, not giving up, and just really, really, really simple stuff there that goes so powerful. And even to the day, him, and I'm going to give you hope. My dad and I chat every day. Like he is we chat every day. And he said, you know what? He says, you're my first line of conversation.
First line.
That wasn't the way it was with him and I when I was younger, but now I'm his comrade. Any big decisions he makes, he talks to me first. And I carried that on with all my relationships. So it's very well. So I know I know it will happen. I know it will happen. Let me ask, what's been your proudest moment as a dad?
Proudest moment. There was 3. And it was the day they were born.
I love it. Beautiful. No, whenever I don't say I work with dads, I help dads. And
there is actually, I do have one proud moment, and I read this before, and you said you
sure,
wanted to
please
read
do.
it. So for your readers, I wrote my first book, Wake Up, Man Up, Step Up, Transforming Your Wake Up Call to Emotional Health and Happiness. And on the front, further praise, list a bunch of people saying things about the book. And then I said, what do women have to say about this book? So some women said some things. But what I want to read is what my daughter wrote. And to give some context, I was on a tandem bicycle when we were living in Grass Valley, and I decided to ask her this question: what kind of role model have I been for you as a man? Now, these are her words now. That was an easy question, I thought. The answer was long and rolled off my tongue. You're not into that fake macho BS. You know that being a man has nothing to do with how tough you are. You take care of yourself and are emotionally aware. You aren't afraid to talk about feelings or to ask for help. You have a strong voice and an equally strong presence and ability to listen. You understand the importance of communication, and you hold yourself accountable and care about integrity and honesty, and you're openly caring. You admit your weaknesses. You have morals and values that you can speak to, and you're available and approachable, and you can take charge and be a leader, but not for greed or desire to be powerful, and you listen to what others have to say. My dad responded that he was so happy he could cry. He said that telling him he had modeled for me the greatest attributes of a healthy, functioning, masculine man was the greatest gift I could give him. But I realized that he was the one who had given me a greater gift than I could have ever asked for. Because of my dad, I have a rock-solid picture in my head of what a real good man should strive to be. I don't have to take seriously any of that fake macho BS, and I have a checklist of things to look for in any man that I want to have in my life, which makes me stronger and more empowered. That was, and still is, one of my proudest moments.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think that I would hope that every dad would like to hear either words or actions like that from their child or children. So thank you for sharing that. As we start winding it down here, just a few more quick conversation pieces. How important is it for fathers to have strong relationships with other dads?
Huge. Whether it's being a dad or being an ally or being a leader, or hell, just being a man, is not something we can do alone. I'm going to say that again. It's not cool to do it on your own. When I sat in men's group and I heard other men speak to their struggles, it made me think. It made me feel compassionate. It made me listen and want to support them, and vice versa. So having relationships with other dads is huge. Highly recommended.
And final conversation piece. What advice would you have for dads that are listening or watching today?
Challenge what you know in being a father. And if you're unfamiliar with stuff that I talked about today, that's okay. And challenge your assumptions about this men's work stuff, about heart, about empathy, and get curious. Whether you get my book, Wake Up, Man Up, Step Up, or any other book, we all have healing to do. And the sooner you work to heal your stuff, the better father you will be, period.
Love it. Good way to end off. Well, Ray, I want to thank you for taking the time to share with us today.
Mm-hmm.
It's made me better. Both our conversations already have made me better. And unless you beat me with a stick from California, I ain't letting go of you, by the way. And just want to, if you want to say a short little bit about the Better Man Conference, There's the link on the screen there, bettermanconference.com, if you want to just share a little bit quickly with our family about that.
Yeah. So the Better Man Conference this year, 2022, will be live and virtually streamed on November 2nd. And it will be in New York and San Francisco. And the themes this year that we're educating folk on are power, patriarchy, and privilege. And all of this is in the context of being an ally and inclusionary leader. But what I always say to the men is all of this stuff that we're talking about applies to you being a father. So sometimes I say, if you are at a company and all these people are looking at you, step into that father energy. Be vulnerable, be authentic, be emotionally literate, be accountable, love them, love yourself. So there's a lot of stuff that they'll glean if they attend Better Man Conference, at least in a corporate and leadership context. So that's the conference.
Wonderful. And there's Ray's website, rayarata.com, where you'll get access to his books, his appearances, etc. All I can say is thank you.
Thank you. And it's been a pleasure to be here today, Ed.
It's an honor and pleasure. The pleasure is mine, and also to all our Dad Central Show family. We will keep in touch, and if there's anything we can do to serve the great helping, not the great work, the great helping that you're providing, please feel free to reach out.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right, everyone. Another epic conversation on the Dad Central Show. So many mic drops, or I like to say knowledge bombs that were provided by Ray, and really appreciate you taking the time. So as always, just want to close up here. The Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. So few quick things. If you want to touch base with us, you can email us at podcast@dadcentral.ca. Give us comments, feedbacks, guest suggestions. If you want to catch replays of the Dad Central Show, go to dadcentral.ca/podcast. And then finally, we have a pile of free resources for fathers, caregivers on our website, dadcentral.ca. So as always, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. Tell your friends, subscribe. We want you to help us make this a great conversation piece as we help fathers and families around the world. So remember to give yourself grace, and don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and we'll see you soon.